I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched C-beams glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate. All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears in rain.
Blade Runner is a 1982 science fiction film directed by Ridley Scott and written by Hampton Fancher and David Peoples. Starring Harrison Ford, the movie is an adaptation of Philip K. Dick's 1968 novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? The film is set in a dystopian Los Angeles, in which synthetic humans known as replicants are bioengineered by the powerful Tyrell Corporation to work on space colonies. When a fugitive group of advanced replicants led by Roy Batty escapes back to Earth, bounty hunter Rick Deckard reluctantly agrees to hunt them down. Interest in adapting the book developed shortly after its publication. Director Martin Scorsese was interested, but never optioned it. Producer Herb Jaff optioned it in the early 1970s, but Dick was unimpressed with the screenplay. The screenplay by Hampton Fancher was optioned in 1977. Producer Michael Dealey became interested in Fancher's draft and convinced director Ridley Scott to film it. Fancher found a cinema treatment for Alan Nurse's novel The Blade Runner. Scott liked the name, so Dealey obtained the rights to the titles. Eventually, he hired David Peoples to rewrite the script. Although Dick died shortly before the film's release, he was pleased with the rewritten script and with a 20-minute special effects test reel that was screened for him when he was invited to the studio. Despite his well-known skepticism of Hollywood in principle, Dick enthused to Scott that the world created for the film looked exactly as he had imagined it.
The film interested me because of the combination of story and director, and that, along with the opportunity to play a different kind of character than I'm most well known for. One of his strong suits, of course, is his visual sense and his eye, and I expected that he would spend a lot of energy on that than somebody else.
Very quickly, in closing, there's an implication in the film that more people may be replicas than we think, including you. It's never developed. What do you think about that?
Replicants, actually.
Replicants.
Replicants, which is a flesh culture thing. But
yeah, I was afraid that was going to be happening.
There's no truth to the rumor.
Does he put his head through a wall?
I am a replicant.
I was afraid of that. Well, while Harrison disintegrates, his 4-year lifespan is about up. I'm John Tibbetts. Go see Blade Runner, an extraordinary motion picture with Sean Young, Rutger Hauer, Harrison Ford, directed by Ridley Scott. I'll talk to you next time in the screening room.
In 1992, Ford revealed, "Blade Runner is not one of my favorite films. I tangled with Ridley." Apart from friction with the director, Ford also disliked the voiceovers. When we started shooting, it had been tacitly agreed that the version of the film that we had agreed upon was the version without voiceover narration. It was a fucking nightmare. I thought that the film had worked without the narration, but now I was stuck recreating that narration, and I was obliged to do the voiceovers for people that did not represent the director's interests. I went kicking and screaming to the studio to record it.
And then somebody said, Rutger wants it off. So I went boom, boom, through the rain to his trailer. He's sitting there saying, I have a written speech. I went, no. And he said, no, sit down and listen. And he said, okay, ready, go. And he read it, and it was great. I said, you stole that? He said, no, I just wrote it. That's amazing.
The Bradbury Building in downtown Los Angeles served as a filming location, and a Warner Brothers backlot housed the Los Angeles street sets. Other locations included the Ennis Brown House and the 2nd Street Tunnel. Test screenings resulted in several changes, including adding a voiceover, a happy ending, and the removal of a Holden Hospital scene. Casting the film proved troublesome, particularly for the lead role of Deckard. Screenwriter Hampton Fancher envisioned Robert Mitchum as Deckard and wrote the character's dialogue with Mitchum in mind. Director Ridley Scott and the film's producers spent months meeting and discussing the role with Dustin Hoffman, who eventually departed over differences in vision. Harrison Ford was ultimately chosen for several reasons, including his performance in the Star Wars films, Ford's interest in the Blade Runner story, and discussions with Steven Spielberg, who was finishing Raiders of the Lost Ark at the time, and strongly praised Ford's work in the film. One role that was not difficult to cast was Rutger Hauer as Roy Batty, the violent yet thoughtful leader of the replicants. Scott cast Hauer without having met him, based solely on Hauer's performances in other movies. Hauer rewrote his character's Tears in Rain speech himself and presented the words to Scott on set prior to filming. Scott credits Edward Hopper's painting, Nighthawks, and the French science fiction comic Metal Hurlant, to which the artist Mobius contributed, as stylistic mood sources. He also drew on the landscape of Hong Kong on a Very Bad Day and the industrial landscape of his one-time home in northeast England. The visual style of the movie is influenced by the work of futurist Italian architect Antonio Santiglia. Scott hired Sid Mead as his concept artist. Like Scott, he was influenced by Metal Hurlant. Mobius was offered the opportunity to assist in the pre-production of Blade Runner, but he declined.
Yes, in one of the scenes I've been sitting on a roof for about 7 days, almost naked, in the rain and the wind, from about 6 in the evening until 5 in the morning, you know, with a few breaks, but that was a bit rough.
Here's a director who seems to impose certain demands upon you.
Yes, it was at the end of the 5 months shooting period, so I was pretty exhausted and pretty cold.
And it's also physically taxing in so many ways, referring back now to Max Havelaar and Soldier of Orange.
But we get paid very well.
Well.
Blade Runner has numerous similarities to Fritz Lang's Metropolis, including a built-up urban environment in which the wealthy literally live above the workers, dominated by a huge building. Special effects supervisor David Dreyer used stills from Metropolis when lining up Blade Runner's miniature building shots. The film's special effects are generally recognized to be among the best in the genre, using the available technology to the fullest. Special effects engineers who worked on the film are often praised for the innovative technology they used to produce and design certain aspects of those visuals. In addition to matte paintings and models, the techniques employed included multipass exposures. In some scenes, the set was lit, shot, the film rewound, and then re-recorded over with different lighting. In some cases, this was done 16 times in all. The cameras were frequently motion controlled using computers. Many effects used techniques which had been developed during the production of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. 7 different versions of Blade Runner exist as a result of controversial changes requested by studio executives. A director's cut was released in 1992 after a strong response to test screenings of a work print. This, in conjunction with the film's popularity as a video rental, made it one of the earliest movies to be released on DVD. In 2007, Warner Brothers released the final cut, a 25th anniversary digitally remastered version. This is the only version over which Scott retained artistic control. Blade Runner initially underperformed in North American theaters and polarized critics. Some praised its thematic complexity and visuals, while others critiqued its slow pacing and lack of action. The film's soundtrack, composed by Vangelis, was nominated in 1982 for a BAFTA and a Golden Globe as Best Original Score. Blade Runner later became a cult film and has since come to be regarded as one of the greatest science fiction films. Hailed for its production design depicting a high-tech but decaying future, the film is often regarded as both a leading example of neo-noir cinema as well as a foundational work of the cyberpunk genre. It has influenced many science fiction films, video games, anime, and television series.
lovers?
Yes.
Did you know your wife a long time?
Thought I did. What's a long time?
Forever. You know what I think? I think today has been the best day of my life. You know what else I think? You and I were made for